Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Large Format Photography Podcast. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Andrew Bartram and Clyde Butcher. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Simon.
Hello, Clyde.
Hello, you guys over there in England land.
It's great to have you with us, Clyde.
Okay, wherever it's warm.
Yeah. Well, it was warm until summer arrived. Lovely spring, and then it stopped.
Well, they say England is kind of interesting in the summertime. It's all not rainy and foggy, and right.
Yeah, it's one of those things, though. I think as photographers, we can moan about the weather almost all of the time, though, can't we? The light is never quite right, and the weather's never quite right, is it?
No, I have to disagree. Oh. The weather is always right. The only time it's not right is when you're not breathing.
Well, yeah.
If you're not breathing, it's not right.
Yeah.
But rain, shine, sun, fog. A good photographer photographs anytime.
Well, that told you then, Simon.
I was going to say, I've been put in my place right at the start. Okay, well, let's quickly move on a little bit before I get told off anymore. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Dave Shrimpton for being our guest on our last podcast, which is about a week and a half or so ago, or rather 3 weeks ago when this podcast actually goes out. And I need to say thank you to Dave Shrimpton again because last week, on last Saturday it was, we did the large format virtual Gathering in the Woods 2020, which was something we ended up having to do because we couldn't gather in the woods together because of COVID-19. So we did it virtually, and we had 23 people at any one time. Chatting to each other, but more to the point, Dave gave a question and answer session on what he's been up to very, very recently, and it was excellent. Mm-hmm. And also, I need to thank Kate Miller-Wilson, who also did the talk. She did the first talk in there, and she gave a very, very much a rubber-gloved, hands-on demonstration about how she shocks film with static electricity and how she actually works with that. Which I remember when we first saw the pictures on, I think they had an article on Petapixel, and they were pretty amazing then. And then seeing Kate actually show us how she does it, her technique on that was absolutely fascinating. So Dave and Kate, thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. Andrew, have you been up to anything interesting?
Well, the most significant thing is today I actually quit my job after 38 years in the same industry and 30 in the same job. So that's going to give me, well, I actually don't finish until the end of the year, but that'll give me some time to do more large format photography in the fens. So that's the most significant thing that's happened today. And I've been dabbling in the darkroom with my large format enlarger, but funnily enough, printing 4 centimeter by 4 centimeter images from a Yashica 44 127 camera. So a bit of printing, and I've quit my job. Other than that, nothing exciting.
It's a pretty big deal, though, isn't it? So it
is, after all these years, working in the same industry, the electricity industry, for 38 years, and suddenly announcing that I'm going at the end of the year. Yeah.
So are you planning to buy a big hat and grow your beard longer and take more
just like Clyde.
Next year?
I want a big Stetson and a big white beard. I've already got a grey beard, but it needs to go a bit whiter like Clyde's.
Well, it's in Florida here. The beard kind of keeps the mosquitoes away.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That means you should be able to go up to Scotland more then, because they have midges up there, don't they? That they want to bite your face off.
Yeah, in Scotland, Clyde. I don't know if it's all year round, and I'm not sure if it's in all parts of Scotland, but we have these small biting insects that love to land on you and eat your face. So with your beard. And if you smoke a pipe, I think that helps keep them away as well.
Yeah. Well, some of my relatives are from Scotland.
Yep.
The Clyde River.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you named after it?
sailboat, Clyde sailboat there. It's yeah.
So are they from sort of Glasgow area, that sort of part of Scotland?
I really don't know. That my dad's side and their whole family are kind of like rednecks.
Okay, what Scottish rednecks?
Well, actually, my great grandfather married an American Indian, so that's
okay.
She's Scottish and Indian.
Wow.
So it's though they weren't really record keepers. My mother's side was more record keepers. They're from England, France, and Germany.
Goodness me. It's very complicated tracing, Americans who've got such, wide
right
sort of background, haven't they, in terms of from all over the world, a real melting pot. So, yeah.
Well, her family helps finance the Revolutionary War here.
Okay.
So they're from here before about 1700.
Help kick the British out.
We kicked them out, yeah.
Yeah, good thing too.
Oh, me.
So that's me anyway, Simon. So apart from, as I say, being a bit, still haven't quite, I'm not sure it's quite sunk in that I finally made the decision to leave, but, life is too, this period of COVID, sort of semi-isolation has, I think, made a lot of people think about what's important in life, and you've got to do what's right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. How about you, Simon? What have you been doing since we last chatted?
Well, as of yesterday, I actually took some large format photographs.
Don't believe you.
I actually did it.
Clyde, all Simon does is buy new cameras because he thinks that's what he needs to do. He doesn't actually go and take any large format photographs.
Well, all you do have to do is take a film holder. Just at least take one film holder and expose the film holder.
Yeah.
Well,
go on then, Simon.
I've actually finally done it, and it's worth talking about it because it was inspired via Dave actually, and quite possibly somebody before that as well. I can't remember, but maybe on the when we had Sveen on the show as well, we might have touched upon it. It's a dead flower. And it's no longer a flower; it's more of a seed head, and it's from the allium family. So it's I think they're related to onions and things, but this is ornamental. You certainly wouldn't be eating the root of this thing. And I've seen it in the garden, and more to the point, it was broken. The stem was broken, so it's a tall flower, a bit like an agapanthus as well. That kind of thing, and single stem. And it had snapped, and it was hanging down. And I was thinking that looks interesting, and it seems to me like an interesting subject to take anyway, because it's not only is it dead, it's broken. And I was thinking, well, let's try and do something with that and try and make something of it. So I got a nice vase for it, single vase, like a rose vase, and I've got I hesitate to call it this, but it's a studio setup. I use it for when I have my photographing stuff for eBay when I'm selling lenses and cameras and such. And I was thinking, well, there you go. I'll do it on a white background, and I want to do it in such a way that I just get the vase and the flower, and everything else is white. And I set it all up, and I've got a softbox and I've got an umbrella. And camera wise, I wanted to use my Toyo, but I realised that the 150mm lens feels like it's welded to my Sinar lens board, so I use that instead. And I metered it. I used a digital camera just to check my exposure, and I realised that I needed to shoot at about f/22 to get the depth of field just about right, but there was just no way I was going to be able to get enough light to the subject to actually to blast out the background, to overexpose the background, and because I could tell just shooting the f/22 just wasn't going to do anything for me. And I'm shooting the FP4, by the way, so I did a couple of things. One, I took the shot at the exposure that sort of would work, which was about f/13, but I knew that the depth of field was going to be a little bit too narrow for the shot, but I thought, well, let's just do it anyway. And then the other one I did is I took 2 shots at f23 or f26, so I double exposed the shot in the hope that that might actually overexpose the background on the 2 shots. So I have no idea if that's going to work. I'll probably develop those this week, but since doing that, we have a virtual meetup of our 6 Towns darkroom every few weeks, and we had one last night where we were trying to discuss whether or not it was safe for us all to go back, or what can we do to make it safe when we go back to it and meet as a group in the darkroom, and which we decided we just can't do it yet. But I mentioned what I'd done, and I was told that I just did everything wrong with this shot, and the most important thing I should have done was to have directed more light to my white background rather than trying to illuminate the object I was trying to take in the first place. So I don't know if either of you got a view on how I should have done that.
Oh, it's not my forte is studio work. I was going to suggest lighting the background, but that was more instinct than knowledge. Do you do any sort of studio work? Or?
Well, I can tell. Well, it's the same thing as shooting in a studio or shooting outside. But what you can do, you should have probably shot it at f45 and got into reciprocity failure. When you get into reciprocity failure, you get more contrast, and that white would have gone whiter.
So you
have a tripod, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So shoot it with the flash, but keep the shutter open for a period of time, and just to blast it out.
You don't need a flash.
Oh, right. Okay.
I've done 45-minute exposures. I mean, if you got a tripod and you haven't got any wind, you can do as long as you want.
Yeah, because the dark areas of the flower are just going to stay as they are, aren't they? They're not going to burn anything out. So
yeah, and because like you say, you want to let that background just get blasted out. So the longer exposure, you can get the light. That'll get the light on the flower you want, and it doesn't matter if the background goes really dark. A little white. Sometimes if it goes so white, it may give you a glow on the backside of the flower.
Did natural light, doing it with natural light, not occur to you, or was it? Your first instincts was to use?
I've got the setup, I've got the kit, so I thought, well, I'll use it. But I think I'm just sitting here with open mouthed, thinking, oh, that's just such a great idea, and I'm just thinking, I'm so glad we got you on the show, Clyde.
Do you have a window?
Yeah. It's the window's
by the window.
Yeah.
And you can use bits of tin foil, aluminum foil, as Clyde would say, to throw a bit of light into the petals, and that helps, doesn't it? Give some modeling to the shape of the petals.
You could use that with the window on the right side and aluminum foil on the left, and the natural light, fill it in.
Lovely.
Crunch it up good though.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, otherwise it can get too specular.
Yeah.
I can see now. I'm gonna be back at my dad's house where all this can happen. I'm gonna be shooting loads of film. Well, just trying this out, but it sounds excellent.
Well, the thing is that you just got to experiment.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll never find a technique unless most all the techniques that I've come up with were accidents. Accidents is where you learn. Reciprocity failure is one of the things that I miss in having. You don't have that in digital, and what reciprocity gives you all kinds of interesting light values when you have reciprocity failure.
Yes, it's something as a pinhole photographer I work with constantly, and but mainly within black and white materials, so it's a fact of life really for us dealing with lensless cameras.
Andrew, I'm just thinking, just for the benefit of those listeners that aren't too familiar with reciprocity, are you able to just give a quick potted explanation on reciprocity and what we're talking about here?
Well, in layman's terms, if you're used to using a camera with normal aperture and shutter speeds on, so from f let's say if it's an SLR you're using and it's f16 to f2 or something, and then you've got a shutter speed range of 1/1000th to a second, then there's a relationship between the amount of light coming into the camera and the time that the sensor, film or digital, is open. And so if your exposure was 1/8 of a second or 1/8 of a second at f16, then that's the same as 1/15th of a second at whatever it is. What did I say? F16 at f22 or something. So there's a direct relationship, for a specific.
That's not what reciprocity failure is.
I know. Well, I'm just getting to that.
I was going to say, come on.
But once you get to times that are longer than typically a second, that relationship starts to break down, and so different films have different relationships. And if you go on to, say, the Ilford website, they'll give you the factors to use, which could be something like 1 point to the power 1 to the 3.38 or something. So you multiply the time by the reciprocity factor, or you look at the curves, or you use an app on your phone. And so 1 second, like for FP4, might end up being 2 seconds. 10 seconds might end up being 30 seconds. That sort of thing. Yeah, that's pretty much right, isn't it, Clyde?
Yeah. The best way to do it is just play around with it, because I've discovered that sometimes when you overexpose a little bit, the highlights really punch out nice in the landscape. I mean, it looks like there's sun almost if you do it right. It's amazing what reciprocity do. I know I was taking some pictures up in the redwood forest up in California. They were 10-minute exposures, and the light meter read 45 seconds. So the film has to have enough light to get the film is sensitive enough to catch the light. Now you go the other way too. You can go to 5,000th of a second, and you have the same problem because there's not enough light hitting the film. It's basically the film is not sensitive to the light like digital is. It's a world you have to explore. Because the first time I was shooting the redwoods, I spent 2 weeks. And I got back, processed the film. I had nothing. I was using the light meter. So I was so upset. I took my hammer and I beat the light meter up.
Is this because the light meter was indicating, times in seconds, and you hadn't allowed for any additional exposure?
Right. It said, 20 seconds. So I shot it for 20 seconds.
Sure, yeah.
Nothing happened. Well, I got the sky through the trees up in the sky. I got some, sky.
And then a load of blank shadows where the tree detail should be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. A lot of nice, shadow area. But reciprocity is one of the unique things that's exciting about film. It's upsetting sometimes because the long exposures you have to do, but it really creates some very interesting images.
If you want that degree of subject movement, often in the landscape, you'll get, with those longer exposures, you'll get your subject movement. So you'll get that sense of movement in the final image with some blurring. Not all photographers want that, though, do they, Clyde? They would perhaps want everything to be frozen, So
that's what in Florida, everything moves.
Yeah.
And I had this one shot I worked on for 9 years before I got it.
Wow.
It was a 6-minute exposure, and in Florida, everything likes to move. Everything is moving.
Including the alligators.
Well, yeah, they don't bother you, though. They're nice guys. They're just trying to keep alive. they don't like people. They basically eat fish, small animals, birds. When people get hurt by gators, it's usually when a guy knocks a golf ball in the pond. He goes try to fish his golf ball out, and the gator thinks it's a fish and just grabs his hand. Then he discovers, oh, there's something else in that. Let's pull it in. So
I knew there had to be a good reason for not taking up golf.
Well, you just leave the ball. If you shoot it in the water, it's the gator's ball.
Yeah, fortunately, we don't have to worry about such things in the fens.
Well, I don't play golf.
No, don't blame you.
So it's a nice way to walk. It takes a nice walk, but that's about it. A lot of great minds are wasted on the golf course.
Well, we don't want to alienate too many of our listeners in one go.
Okay. Well,
I don't have many golfing friends anyway, so I don't.
No, me neither. I don't think we've got many golfing listeners.
Yeah,
I've broken golf clubs, and that's it. I don't do it anymore. Okay. Well, I've just got to thank you for that tip there. Were you going to say something there, Clyde?
I didn't hear.
Okay, so I just want to thank you for that tip.
Okay.
And,
okay. When you come to Florida, stay away from the golf courses.
Yeah. Okay, I was talking more about the reciprocity with my flower, that's to be honest, the tip with the golf ball was probably it's got more chance to save my life at least anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I one thing I very, very miss in digital photography is reciprocity failure. I don't miss the long exposures, but I miss the reciprocity effect.
Well, I think that's probably a good time to ask you what you've been up to lately, because I know that you've mentioned digital a few times there, and digital is something that is been playing an increasing part in your active photography at the moment, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it really is. But when digital was coming up, it was interesting. But the problem I had with digital in the early days was the cameras weren't very, they didn't have much detail, and the papers weren't very good that you print on, and the inks weren't very good. And I think around 2002, 2003, the digital cameras start getting better, and the papers and the inks were getting better. And that was my concern, is having something, if you're going to have print a digital print, have it on something that will last. And I thought that was really important. And now I'm shooting, I have actually two digital cameras that I shoot with. They're the Fuji GFX 100 and the Leica M10 monochrome, which is it's like shooting with film. If anybody wants to go to digital, it's a black and white photographer. It's like film in the respect that, when you shoot it, that's what you've got. When you shoot in color and then put it into black and white, you have all the kinds of opportunities to do all your sliders, your yellows, your greens, your reds, your blues, the cyans, the magentas. You can do all kinds of things. But with the monochrome, it's just like film. If you decide you want to use a red filter, that's it. You want to use an orange filter, that's it. You want to use a green filter, that's it. In other words, once you shoot it, it's like a piece of film. You can obviously go into Photoshop and burn and dodge. That's the same thing you do with film. You go in the darkroom and you burn and dodge. So it's the same psychological process as shooting film. So it's basically a new old world.
It's not as sexy as your 10x8 Deerdoff, though, is it? Come on, be truthful.
It's a lot lighter. My 8x10 Deerdoff is 17 pounds. The lenses are, 3 pounds. Just a whole set of gears, you're carrying 50 pounds into the swamp. Yeah. That's a lot of weight.
I think we've got to be fair to Clyde. He's probably earned his time with digital now.
I know.
Well, it's really exciting, and it's opening a lot of world for me. But again, one reason I went to film, I bought my first 5x7 Deerdorf in 1970 for $100. It was a Cal's camera in Costa Mesa, California, because nobody wanted large format then. They were all shooting 35, 2 1/4, Hasselblad, and they had no interest at all. This poor old camera had dust all over it, and I said, "Can you want to get rid of that?" And he said, "Sure, give me $100." I said, "Okay." Now the same exact camera you can pick up for about $2,000. That's how much more interest there is now in film. Film is coming back like a vengeance. I have, I think it's 7 or 8 big enlargers. I think the most I ever paid for one of those was $300, and now they're like, the used ones are selling for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Film is coming back. People are getting tired of. They want to learn how to photograph. They want to learn how to be patient with large format. You have to have a lot of patience and persistence to take a good photograph, and it's and also when you go click. I think T-Max 100 right now is $5 a sheet. My T-Max 12x20 is $30 a sheet. So when you go click, you're talking about some money. That's not clean processing. That's just just shooting it. And when I did a trip around the country in 2006. I was going to do a museum show for St. Mary's University for the 400th anniversary of Jamestown. So I wanted to go across the country and fill in stuff I hadn't taken for this show called America the Beautiful. I took 1,700 sheets of film in that 3 months. That was $25,000 in film. It took me 2 months to process it. It was 5.5 months before I saw the first print. That's a little different than shooting digital, and you can look back at the camera and says, "Oh, look, there it is." So it's a whole different world. But again, actually, it was of that 1,700 shots. There was only about 10 I couldn't use. Yeah. But it was a lot of work. A lot of work because every night you have to take your film holders and empty them and put them in the box, and you have to take the film holders out and clean them and put it back in the little changing tent and put new film in it. So we were working from 4:30 in the morning till 11 at night every day for 3 months. Got a little tiring.
Was that 8x10?
It was 5x7, 8x10, and 12x20.
Wow. Same film, we're using same film stocks across the different sizes.
Yeah, I use T-Max 100 for everything. Yeah. I think T-Max 100 is probably, it's really a great film. The only problem is if you ever want to do platinum palladium prints directly from the film, it's not a very good idea because it takes and filters out the UV. So it's not very good for platinum palladium printing.
Is that just with T-Max 100?
Yes, okay. Yeah. All your Elford films are fine.
Yeah,
no problem with Elford.
Right.
I want to just bring it back to something else you said there about using the monochrome, and because you talked about slapping a filter on, and
right.
And that's intriguing to me because I was having a conversation with a chap called Brian from our darkroom club not too long ago, and he was debating whether or not to use filters on his digital camera, his color digital camera.
Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Well,
the camera will just neutralize it.
Well, that was the thing. It never got as far to actually trying it. But the fact is that you're doing it though with the monochrome, which has got the monochrome center. It doesn't go. I'm not too sure how it works, but it doesn't go through the same process as splitting things into colours and things like that. Which is why you end up with perhaps a truer or a more something that's closer to what you might expect with black and white film. And
it's the same thing as film.
Yeah. So what's interesting me too there though is that it's digital, yet you're still putting a filter on it instead of trying to do something in post processing in Lightroom or Photoshop after the effect.
Correct. You can't believe the people don't really understand a lot of the color digital in your different colors, your blue, your red, and your green. Like the blue, when you're using a digital camera, only 25% of the light is going to the blue. Only 25% is going to the red, and 50% is going to the green. So if you've got a 40 megabyte camera, you're only getting 10 megabytes of sky. Whole different world. Mm. And with the monochrome, you're getting 40 megabytes everywhere. I mean, it's just like a piece of film.
Clyde, I'm familiar with the monochrome Leica. I remember when it was launched a few years ago and reading about it and thinking how interesting it sounded, but I never really heard anybody or spoken to anybody who's used it. Now, with film photography, we know that a piece of black and white film, mm-hmm. Depending on what speed it is and who makes it, they'll all behave slightly differently. And, if you've got some that'll see more into the red spectrum. So with this camera, can you effectively say, I'm shooting FP4 or I'm shooting HP5 and it behaves like that? Or is it just a sort of generic, effectively a generic density curve that you get out of it, like you would with film?
It's actually different than film.
Right.
I don't think there's any film you can compare it to.
Right.
It's a whole different world.
So you don't have like a template that you program it and say, well, actually, this is going to be like shooting FP4. That was how...
You can't do that.
No.
And what you do is you have to shoot for the highlights.
Oh, right.
If you blow out a highlight, it's blown. It's gone. Right. So you shoot for the highlights and then you process for the shadows.
So that's more like chrome or transparency film,
yes.
really.
Yeah. Yes. I never, ever shot transparency. Oh, God. I never wanted to be a good photographer. All I wanted to be was an artist. That's bullshit. The people that shoot transparency are just insane.
Well, we have, if you do listen to any of our former podcasts, Clyde, now that you've been on the show, I expect you to go away and listen to all of them. We had a gentleman, another YouTube superstar called Ben Horn, and Ben shoots. He does
and
2 or 3
Alan
trips
Brock as well.
And Alan Brock, yeah. But I was specifically thinking of Ben because Ben does 2 or 3 trips a year to Death Valley, to Zion.
I've seen it. I've seen his work, and
and he shoots transparent, mostly transparencies.
Well, you can't be. Everybody can't be too intelligent. I mean, you have no. See, the thing is, with color negative, you can work with it in the darkroom.
Yeah.
You can underexpose it, get a different effect. You can expose it normal, get an effect. You can overexpose it, you can actually work with color negatives, and it has a much more tonal range than the slides. I mean, if you don't shoot a slide right, you've had it.
Yep. And they're not cheap, are they?
No, and I think it's just, I don't know why anybody would shoot with transparency.
Yeah. What's wrong with you, Ben?
I don't know. He's just, I guess, well, it's challenging, I guess, and I've seen his film. It's pretty flat. I mean, when you overexpose color negatives, you get some more zap to it. I mean, it's a whole different world. You can do all kinds of things. In Hollywood, they've never, ever used transparency film to photograph movies. Every movie has ever been shot with a color negative.
Yep.
I mean, why would they do that? Why wouldn't they shoot transparency? Because they have control. I mean, also, see, when I was shooting color, which was back from about 1972 to 1985, it was hard to, they had this art, you didn't have scanners. You couldn't scan the film. So you had to use an enlarger, and trying to process in an R4, is it all R4 process?
Yes, I think so.
It's very difficult. The Cibachrome was actually health-wise dangerous. So color negative was used because I could put it in my enlarger and I could do all my own printing.
Yeah.
Now, I've never ever had anybody print my work. You have to do your own printing to be able to get out of it what you think you want to get out of something. You have to do your own printing, and that's one thing nice about. Well, people are shooting color, black and white negatives and scanning it, which I think they're losing half the battle there. But
well, I do try and take every opportunity to encourage people to, first of all, to make a print. That's the most important thing. Even my wife, who, is shooting on her phone, and I said, look, and she does, fortunately, make prints, because that's our legacy to our children and our grandchildren.
Correct.
And then, if you're really serious, then get yourself some kind of darkroom set up. It doesn't need to be all singing, all dancing. It can be in your bathroom or in a closet somewhere, and see the difference.
Yeah, I made dark rooms in my garage, and what I do is I had a big tank for the water goes into, and have a sump pump that goes into the shower thing for the wash machine. So if you can make a dark room anywhere you want. Just have to be a little creative.
My dark room's in the garage, and I don't have running water. I never have.
Well, what you do is you get like a 10-gallon plastic tub.
Mm-hmm.
Put a sump pump in it, and then put that into the washing machine drain. So
That's
you can use, you don't have to use if you don't use a lot. Now, if you're doing fiber prints, you have to use a lot of water for the wash.
Yeah, I do have a 16 by 20 vertical washer, with slots in for washing print, like I think you've got. But for that, I take the hose from the garden through a hole in the wall and plug it in, and then I have the drain running to the outside.
Right.
So
water your garden.
Yeah.
The gardens probably need a little extra selenium.
Yeah, I do a bit of selenium, but I think small amounts of selenium on the garden helps. Clyde, you said we'll have to do a formal introduction in a moment, but you touched upon your color work, and when I was doing reminding myself a little bit of your background and things you've done in the past, I picked up on a quote, which I hope, to goodness sake, this is an accurate quote.
Okay.
And I'm gonna ascribe it to you anyway. And you said that color is a duplication and black and white is an interpretation.
Correct. I think it's a simple way of explaining it. You could explain it where that black and white's art and color is decor. But
you hinted at some degree of tonality control in the darkroom with color. I mean, I've never printed color, so clearly to say just color is a duplication is not quite the whole truth, I guess, from what you said. But
you can't go too far off.
Yeah,
I mean, it can look pretty bad if you go too far off of in the color. But still, I just don't think that black and white gives you the soul of your what you're trying to do. It gives you color gets too confusing.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
The color work that I did do was very, very monochromish.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't have a lot of color. I mean, didn't have a lot of different colors. I mean, the ones that were successful, well, not all of them, but most of them were very monochromish. But with color negatives, you can burn and dodge, and just like you do black and white.
But I guess the range, to quote that well-trodden expression from our friend Ansel Adams about the negative being the score. If you've got that, what we might call a flexible negative one with all the tonalities in there,
right?
And the range of interpretation, depending on how you were either feeling at the time and what the scene invoked in you, or maybe what you're feeling as you're in the darkroom, can bring a whole range of interpretive results with the black and white negative, which probably isn't there with the color.
I've all my years of photographing in black and white. I have one negative as a straight print.
Yeah.
And it was really good. It was a driftwood, and I used a red filter, so it popped the background. It was very simple, but I've got one negative that's a straight printer. If people think that you should be able to print what comes out of the camera, you're not artists.
Yeah, so you see comments on social media. I don't know how much you get involved in social media, Clyde, but you do see comments, and I do occasionally comment on these things, and they'll say, well, I don't do any, they're talking about Lightroom or Photoshop. Everything I do is all in camera, and then it's true to my vision. And I said, hey, the photographic artists of the world making darkroom prints, do you think they just take a negative and do a straight effectively a work print? That their interpretation of the image and the scene comes to life in the darkroom, and that's the same with Lightroom or Photoshop, which of course is your digital darkroom, and use that tool to help you express your ideas through the medium.
You think Stiglitz made straight prints? No. I mean, I get a kick out of that too. People say, "Oh, you got to just do it in camera." Well, if you want a boring picture, do it in camera.
You heard it here first, folks.
Well, I mean, your eye can balance things out in your brain.
Yeah.
But the materials you have to work with don't do that.
No.
You have to fix the mistakes that nature made.
Yeah. Simon, are you there, Simon?
I am. I'm thoroughly enjoying this.
He's sleeping there.
Yeah.
No, I know when he's fallen off to sleep, he mutes his microphone.
No. I was actually my wife Judith. She brought in some homemade coffee cake and a cup of tea.
Oh, do you want to pass some over to us?
Well, unfortunately, I've eaten it now.
Well, I'll tell you, that's the only thing I ever drink is tea.
Good. It's
and water. Water.
Yeah. Two very, very good drinks there. No two ways about it. But no, I'm quite. Apart from the fact that I was muted because I was eating and I didn't want to disturb the conversation.
That's okay.
But it's just one of those chats that I'm just more than happy just to sit back and listen to the two of you. And I think this is a good time to do what Andrew was alluding to, and to formally introduce you to the show after 45 minutes. So back to you, Andrew.
Yeah, I'd love to do this introduction. So thank you. Clyde, I've been a long time admirer of your work, as I'm sure just when I mentioned that we was chatting to you earlier today on our Facebook group that goes along with the podcast, the Large Format Photography Podcast Facebook group. So I've written a few pointers down here to introduce you, and I'm going to just say these things about you. Some of these are the first one's a quote off your website, so I guess you must agree with it. Legendary photographer and national treasure. I guess that's you. Humanitarian, conservationist, fine art, large format photographer, publisher of several books, and wearer of an awesome beard and hat. We're very pleased and honoured to have Clyde Butcher with us. If you hadn't already gathered after 45 minutes, to learn a little bit more about his life and his work and his conservation and his time in the Western Everglades. So welcome, Clyde. It's a real pleasure and privilege to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. I think a large format photographer has to have a beard and a hat.
Absolutely. You see, that's what we say.
Unless you're a woman, and then you get a pass.
Well, see, the problem is if you don't have a beard, you may have to spend all this wasted time shaving. Or you could be out photographing.
So, ladies, that's an advantage to you because you don't have to have a shave and you can spend all that extra time photographing. So, Clyde, can I ask you maybe just to spend some time? I think your story is probably fairly well known to anyone who knows of you.
Okay.
But it's an interesting tale of how you got to where you are. You've alluded to little bits of it, but maybe talk a little bit in the time-honored way that we do with podcasts of how you got to your 60 years of photographing.
Well, actually, it's my first real camera I used was a Yashica 127 film.
Oh, there you go.
When I was 10 years old. That was my third camera when I was 10. Was
that the Yashica 44 that I use?
Yep. I still have it.
Super.
And well, before that was a Brownie Hawkeye.
Yeah, I have one of those too. I flip the lens on mine so you get weird effects.
Well, you can actually still buy the 620 film.
Yeah. Oh, I respooled some in the darkroom for my 620 Brownie the other day, Clyde. So I just took some 620 spool in the darkroom, wound it onto one spool, and then wound it back onto the other, and you're good to go, aren't you?
Freestyle in California sells 620.
Yeah. That's a bit expensive to get it shipped to the Fens, mate.
Probably, too, yeah. So then when I was I'm an architectural graduate in architecture.
Yeah.
When I was in architectural school, I was developing my architectural model photography. And that really got me into spatial relationships. I was doing projects this was in the 60s, that the first main project I did when I was a junior, the instructor said, this is an F, or you're out of school, or I'm going to give you an A. Because this sort of thing had never been done before. A photograph of the model was my architectural rendering for the project.
So these are architects' models of developments or buildings, and you were photographing them. So is that how you were learning to render shapes and modeling and lighting?
Yeah,
and stuff?
Well, and learning how, in architecture, one of the things that our instructors did is taught us how to see. And because you have to be able to figure out how to get someone that's walking down the street to get them into your building. So you have to be able to figure maybe an entryway that maybe works, it pulls people in. So he was telling us how we see. And I had no idea. You only see about 5 degrees. You realize that.
Right.
You don't see, some people say, oh, I see 180 degrees. No, you perceive maybe 180 degrees, but you only actually see 5 degrees. So you have, because when you're in nature, you're scanning. You're scanning nature to see it. You can't see it all at once. You have to learn how to see it. So in architecture, I started learning how to see. And at the same time, when I was in school, I was dating my wife. We'd go up Yosemite. I saw Ansel Adams' work in 1962 and thought that was kind of curious. Photographing nature, that's kind of interesting. Most people photograph things like houses for sale, it's commercial, weddings, that sort of thing.
Did you meet him at that point?
Unfortunately, I never did. By the time I was really wanted to, he just went and died on me. But because I've always been doing my own thing. I really haven't. The only photographers I really studied was Ansel Adams, Edward Weston, and Wynne Bullock.
Yep. Well, they're not bad starting points.
Win Bullock is one of those sleepers. People don't remember Win Bullock. I thought was the most creative of all three of all of them.
I've just been reading about him actually in a book on interviews with photographers.
Yeah, he's pretty much of a space case.
Yeah.
He was a good hippie back there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But a hippie that wore a suit. But so I started photographing actually in and I had my model photography camera is one I made. Actually made it. It was the size of a piece of film. I found a 28 millimeter f3.5 Canon rangefinder lens. And I took it to a guy, and they put it took all that gizmo off and put it in a tube with an f64 f-stop in it. So I would take that little camera and set it inside the model. So anyhow, I started photographing with the 20 millimeter. I was the first person that had I think I was one of the first people that had the first 20 millimeter retro focus lens in the country. It was a Flektogon 20 millimeter. It was the first one ever built. Was 1961. Now, Leica had a 21 millimeter, but it wasn't a retro focus. You couldn't see through the lens. So,
Clyde,
yeah.
Simon knows what you're talking about, and I'm familiar with the term retrofocus, but just remind me and our other dim listeners what you're talking about.
Almost every camera you buy today, except for Leica, is a retro focus. What it is that when you have in single lens reflexes, it's 50 millimeters from the flange to the film.
Mm-hmm.
What if you have a 15 millimeter lens? Yeah. That means it has to be
touching the mirror.
You have to go right through the mirror, bash that mirror out. Because of course that's what Sony did. They bashed the mirror out. Yeah. But anyhow, so what a retro focus does is it actually creates the image in front of the lens, and then projects it in with like a telephoto back to the film.
Right.
It's a really.
Thank you very much for that.
It's it was an amazing invention, and guess who did it? Zeiss. Yes.
I'm not 100% sure about that, whether it was Zeiss, because I think it might have been Angeno first. I've got.
I looked it up. Look up Flektogon. Flektogon was made by Zeiss. It was a East German company.
That's right. Yeah, Carl Zeiss Jena. But I've got it in my head, that it was Angeno first. But anyway, I might just look that up while we're having the chat.
Okay.
But that's an interesting one.
You can have that nerdy conversation on the Classic Lenses podcast, can't you?
But anyhow, I've been shooting with wide angle since 1962.
What camera were you using then with these wide angle lenses?
Well, I was borrowing. I bought the lens, but I borrowed the Exacta from the director of the architectural school. Right. Then I bought the camera I bought when I got out of school was a Miranda. You heard of a Miranda?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
You know why you buy a Miranda? All their ads have these naked ladies on them,
They were pretty famous for that, yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it was a American company making cameras in Japan. At that time, the Japanese got upset at it, and they kind of pushed them out of business. It wasn't a bad camera. So I used a 20 millimeter. I think I was able to adapt it. I think it was a, what do you call it, M49 or 30, 49 mount. So I put that Leica, the Flektogon on the Miranda with that mount. So I did a lot of photography with that. And then I think about maybe a year after I graduated, I got a Hasselblad super wide, and then I got that Mamiya Press 6x9 with a 50 millimeter. That was I really enjoyed that camera. It was really a neat camera. Took fantastic pictures. And the 50 millimeter on the 6x9 was a really nice angle.
Mm.
And then I did that. I started a company, a wholesale company selling photographs called I Encounter. And we had a display in a furniture mart in Los Angeles, to sell. That was in 1970 or 71. Or,
what were you selling there, Clyde? Was that prints of pretty scenes and Yosemite prints and stuff?
No, black. But I never did figure out photograph. It took me a long time to figure out how to photograph Yosemite, but it was mostly driftwoods, sand dunes, sailboats, coastal stuff, California.
So you had almost like a little pop-up stall or stand or area within the store.
No. We built like 30-inch cubes.
Okay.
That were cubes, and there was 3 of them, and then we put the prints on. We had 3 or 4 of these cube stands in the showroom.
Right. Okay.
It was the actual showroom. We sold to decorators.
I see. Yeah.
Industrial stuff mostly, because photography was not a big thing in 1970. I mean, a 20 by 20 frame print, I think, retailed for $90. So then I think it was about 1972. Actually, it was about 1971 that I decided that I wanted to go to color, and 2 1/4 color for making I wanted to make large color prints, and 2 1/4 wasn't really very good. The film back then, the process for developing the negative film was C22, and they weren't that sharp. So I figured that's when I bought my 5x7 camera, so I could shoot larger format film to do big color prints.
Why did you want to move on to color? Was it a purely sort of commercial decision at the time as to what would sell?
Well, you got the shag carpets, you had the gold couches, you had the avocado refrigerators, golly, got to have earth tones. So it was basically survival of I just wanted to survive, and I wanted to be a photographer. I wanted to be in nature.
Yeah.
And then that was doing pretty good. Those were all original prints I printed in the darkroom. I did 16 by 20. My first start, I did 16 by 20 prints in trays. Mm-hmm. I could process 50 16 by 20 color prints at a time in a tray.
How many?
50.
Really?
Yes.
Were you just sort of moving them constantly one above the other and shifting?
Yeah, shuffle them. But see, the developing time was 12 minutes.
Yes.
So we had plenty of time. The whole process took an hour through the trays. There was 9 trays. The last tray was formaldehyde.
Goodness me.
These were not fiber. These were fiber prints. These were not RC prints. This was before RC came out.
Yeah.
When RC came out, it was too sticky. You couldn't do that. They were too sticky.
Right.
So we got a Nord processor. Do you remember the Nords? Or
no.
Oh, no. It's a processor, kind of like a Creonite, but you had a leader that you led through of the machine, all these tanks, and you clip the leader on. So you would process 275 feet of colored paper, and you clip the leader on, and it would run the paper through the machine.
Okay.
And hopefully you catch the back end of it, or you really got problems. You have to leave the whole thing. So then I bought I think it was a Creonite for 40-inch paper. So we're doing 40-inch original prints. And then we were doing okay. We were selling a little bit. And then we said, we actually talked to Spencer Gift about putting in work in the. They were looking for something in their front window, their front wall, to bring people into the store. So I said, what if we make you like 20-inch by 50-inch color framed photographs with a clock mounted on it, called a picture clock. And they tested it out, and it was really successful. We ended up getting Pennies, Wards, Sears, Spencer Gift, Spiegels, Esnich green stamps, Mobile Oil. We actually had some of our photographs on back Cheerio boxes. So I've sold about every way you can sell a photograph. That was the 70s. And then we sold, because that was all landscape stuff. Mostly sunsets, redwood forest, some sailboat stuff. And then we sold the business. I came to Florida, and I was tired of shooting landscape. And we had bought a little sailboat we brought to Florida, and we sailed around Florida for 3 months. And then when we got back from that sail trip, there was 4 of us on this 20-foot boat that I built. And I went, for some reason, Salvador Dali had a museum just opened up in 1982 in St. Petersburg. And I went through that, and I was getting kind of excited about doing something really kind of weird. Not that he was weird or not, but so I had this idea. You're familiar with Jerry Uelsman, right?
Who, sorry?
Jerry Uelsman?
Nope. I sound like I should be, but carry on.
He was basically kind of the first Photoshop guru without Photoshop.
Okay.
He would take 4 or 5 images, black and white, and put them together on a piece of paper. Create an image with these 4 or 5. He had seven enlargers set up in his darkroom. Right. He'd set 7 different negatives up, and he would create these images. So I wanted to, of course, I was shooting color, so I had to do something in color. So I did some I called outer space stuff. They were multiple images with the Earth in it, the moon in it, birds.
I've seen some of those. Not today when I was looking at your work, but I remember seeing your space stuff. Yeah. So I got that out of my system, and then I got excited about. Then I decided to go back and photograph again. So I started photographing Florida in color. The beaches were first because that was typical. Because I've been photographing Hawaii and California. Mm-hmm.
Beaches were that's sellable stuff because we were interested in making a living.
Yep.
So I did that, and then I think it was 1984. I discovered the enters of Florida, the swamps, and I started for only about 2 years. I photographed the interior parts of Florida, and I was doing art shows, doing really well. Last show I did in color, I think it was in March of '86. I did $18,000 on the weekend. Not too bad for an art show in '86. Now the people who were doing black and white, their sales ran from $300 to $500. But I was saying to myself, I really would like to get back into black and white, but I still like to make a living. And my wife at the same time she was doing hand colored. She would take her pictures in black and white, and we'd make prints for her, and she would hand paint them. So they were kind of like the old fashioned, colored prints. And then on anniversary, June 15th of 86, our son was killed in an automobile accident by a drunk driver.
Mm.
And I said to myself, well, I want to go back to my roots and get back to black and white. I think I want to tell people about Florida because we were having real problems with the Everglades, and the federal government was suing the state, and I felt it was important to just because people were excited about the swamps and color, but I didn't think they were really seeing it. So I took all my color work, was 2 bread trucks full, probably about $400,000, and took it to the dump.
Yeah, I read that you destroyed it all. Was it just dumped, or did someone fish it out after you'd left?
No, I waited there until the guy ran over it with a machine.
Goodness me.
No, but I saved the negatives, though. I didn't throw the negatives away.
Oh, okay. That's not so bad.
So I still print some of those negatives in black and white.
So, Clyde, there was a point there then that up until this point, you've been quite rightly focused on, making a good living as you can from photography. You've been churning out pictures for, industrial concerns and to decorate people's, reception areas or what have you.
Right.
And you find yourself in Florida, and you find yourself exposed to the Everglades, and is this a point at which you're starting to think, well, okay, I've got the art that I love. I want to make great pictures, but there's also this real problem with the Everglades. I don't know if that's the time when they were being drained and the whole ecosystem was in danger. Is that sort of time?
Oh, they've been doing that for years.
Right. Because as the buildings and communities have grown.
Yeah, but that started in 1900. You have to realize the Everglades was the first park established downhill from civilization. All the other parks, Yosemite, Glacier, Tetons, were all uphill. All that nice water ran down to the cities.
Yep.
And here we had all the shit rain down. And they when the government decided to do that in 1947, it was just after World War II. And the concept of environment was not pretty much in their minds at all. But just that President Truman was really into Florida, and he saw the value in it, so they made the park. But
didn't he help set up part of Yosemite as well? Was that President Truman?
I don't know. I thought it was Roosevelt.
Okay, well,
Teddy Roosevelt. Actually, Yosemite was set up by Lincoln.
Was it?
Yeah, Lincoln gave that property to the state for a park.
Okay.
In 1864.
Right. Sorry, I distracted you from your.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the Everglades and how your work developed into conservation and art in hand.
So therefore, I was just trying to tell people what it took me 4 years being in Florida before I discovered what Florida was about. It took 4 years. I mean, there's no mountains, there's no big giant rocks, there's no that dead stuff around here. Florida is alive. It's a living, crawling organism. And it took a while to discover it. But I finally discovered it. I met a fellow named Oscar Thompson, which was a 5th generation Floridian. He was raised in the Everglades. And he took me out to see it and got me in the water. And so it was really very exciting because a whole different world than out west. A whole different thing. And nobody really had ever artistically photographed the Everglades because it's not visitor friendly. I've been walking and photographing Big Cypress, where the gallery is, since 1984, and I have never ever met another person. How many parks can you say you've never met someone?
Sure. Yeah. Not many.
No. I don't. Well, maybe in Alaska,
Yeah.
probably you'll find some. But Rocky Mountain National Park, I was photographing this beautiful scene. Probably 500 people passed me when I was photographing it. I mean, you've been to Yosemite,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, in August.
Yeah, well, that's really stupid. But
I know. Thank you.
You don't never go. Never. June 15th on. Forget.
Yeah, I know.
Like I say, April's the best time.
Yeah.
April's the best time.
But in the Everglades, you're not, there aren't boardwalks to walk on. There aren't footpaths, I guess. So you're accessing it by canoe and, waders.
Mostly, no, you don't use waders.
Don't you?
No, okay. Gosh, no. You fill you hit a hole and fill them up, you drown.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's not, see, waders are designed for like streams that have rocks in them.
All right. Yeah.
It's not designed for places you're going to fall in the hole.
Right. I
wear tennis shoes and shorts.
Do you? I'd be a bit scared of things crawling up my legs and biting me.
Well, at least you can feel them.
What sort of thing? Are you not frightened of things?
The only thing that's
biting you.
The only thing really out there that's really upset me is fire ants.
Oh yeah, I've seen those on TV.
Yeah, sometimes they'll be floating on some sawgrass, and you actually run into them. That's not good.
Oh.
But no, I've never had a problem with an alligator or a snake.
No.
Not in the woods. No.
Well, that's good to hear.
And our gallery, after the rain starts, probably in August, even all the mosquitoes are gone.
I hate mosquitoes.
Yeah, well, people come out to our gallery, you're in Miami or you're in Naples and you're getting inundated by mosquitoes. Come to our place out in the middle of the Big Cypress, and they have all this. They have their mosquito spray, and I say, just wait don't put it on right yet. Wait until they get a bunch of mosquitoes, and they come back from a walk and they say, we didn't have any mosquitoes. What's the deal here? Because we have fish that eat them. We have a plant that's called bladderwort. It's a carnivorous plant that eats the larvae. In the summertime, it rains every day, so it washes the bromeliads out, so so they don't have a time to breed. The worst time is now, when it rains every 7 to 8 days.
And that still water.
It gives them enough time to breed.
Right.
So and also May is really good for horseflies too.
I hate those as well. I've been bitten by one of those. I've been bitten by most things. Horsefly, I remember one of those landing on me. They're vicious things, they are.
How about one day 100 or 200 of them on you? Yeah, that's fun. Get blood all over you.
You're not selling the Everglades to me, I'm afraid, Clyde. Sorry.
That's kind of good because it keeps people out.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about those walks that you do, or when you walk around, I should say. And I saw something on YouTube, and you were taking a chap around,
Correct.
and it was quite fascinating because at first I was like quite shocked to see you just like walking through the water, and I could tell you weren't wearing waders. And I was thinking, he's just walked into the water, and the poor guys just had to follow him, and that's it. And but one of the things that I can't remember his name, but he was saying how it was hard underfoot, and it wasn't muddy at all, and that was quite surprising to me.
You have to realize that Florida is actually a seabed. So it's like moral. It's like you're walking on coral reefs. So it's basically some of the areas. Well, it's when you walk in an area our walk that we take, we try to keep people in the same walk so we don't destroy anything. So all the mud is gone. So you have to. It's the worst thing that can happen to you. You could sprain an ankle or something, But now we took President Carter and his family on a swamp walk, and he just had a great time. He was just like, he was smiling the whole time. He was just having a ball.
Well, he smiled a lot anyway, didn't he? I don't think I've ever seen him not smiling.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Secret Service were a different story, though. They were.
How did they have to wade through the water as well? The Secret Service.
I think there was 5 of them.
Oh, I bet they hated that.
Well, was one lady that was for Rosalind. I was keeping an eye on Rosalind because I was there to catch her in case she wanted to fall, but. She goes in the walk. She says, "I can't believe they're making me do this." You know, she's like 6'1", okay, big lady. And halfway through this walk, she says to me, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. This is really great. I mean, your whole mind changes a lot as you go through the walk, because we don't take people through the gator holes anymore. We used to take people through gator holes, but we don't do that anymore.
What's a gator hole?
Well, the gators are.
Oh, is it? Right. Okay. Well, that's good. But you've never lost anybody to a gator, have you?
No. We've had, we were going through the back pond, which is pretty deep. And a couple of times a gator would pop up next to someone. And we said, don't think we ought to do this anymore. Even though they I'm sure they didn't bother anybody, but I didn't want to. So we don't do that anymore. We take.
Well, you've got. I see that you if you click on Clyde's website, folks listening to this, which is clydebutcher.com, there's a section which talks about the private guided swamp walks, and you've got a whole bunch of kids and all sorts down there. So I guess it's safe enough, isn't it?
We've taken, I don't know, at least 12,000 people through.
These days, are you or your colleagues, the people you work with, are you doing specific photography opportunities with? Yes. Would you encourage large format photographers to come and do some Clyde Butcher work?
We have special events for that. They're longer, 3 to 4 hours instead, and we take Scott takes you to areas that are nice, and we just stay there for a while, so you have a time to, maneuver around and take pictures. Because on the swamp walks, we just walk.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, we stop and explain the system to people. How this works, what this is about. But it's basically just an educational thing. But we do have opportunities for. We encourage maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people to get together and do a photo trip together. So that's fun. A lot of people do that.
I think what I'd love to do is stay in your swamp cottage, which has got a glorious sounding name. Is it really luxurious? It looks luxurious. It sounds like it should be like a rundown shack full of mosquitoes, but it looks lovely. Spend a few days there, and then
we even have a bathroom.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you mean you don't have to go in the swamp?
We have 11,000 watts of solar with 3 Tesla batteries in it.
Yeah.
So we don't even lose electricity when the electricity goes out.
I'd like to spend a few days there, and then just spend a few days with shooting large format in the Everglades. That would be wonderful.
Yeah. Well, all my bird photography was done from my porch.
Is it? Yeah.
I have a Pentax 6.7 8 to 1200 millimeter lens.
Oof.
And just sit there on the porch and take pictures.
Of course, it
has to be realized that's an in air conditioning too.
Yeah, that's okay then.
Bird photography and air conditioning is pretty nice.
What I guess a lot of folks know about you in terms of conservation and environmental awareness is that producing beautiful landscape prints that, and again, forgive me if I've misquoted you, but I wrote something down here that you want people to feel a connection when they look at your images. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at people to get emotionally involved in that area, which is a really good thing, I guess, for raising awareness.
Right.
How are you? What are you doing in terms of making that image? to make people feel a connection? What are some of the things you're looking for, or some of the sort of techniques you're using?
The basic technique is I make the pictures large so you can't see them.
Not so big that you're just fully immersed, that it becomes overwhelming.
Yes. So what you're doing is you're like an 8-foot picture.
Yeah.
You should be standing 4 feet from it. When you stand 4 feet from it, you're the same angle of view that the lens was.
Yeah.
So when you start scanning that picture, you're there in the scene. It's 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
And what I do when I point my camera, I say, where do I want someone to go? That's where I point my camera.
So that you're looking to lead them in, almost that you can fall into the image, and follow the path through and be immersed in it.
Mm-hmm. When I do pictures in, say, like in a small stream, the camera usually is about 2.5, 3 feet off the water. And so you feel like when you look at that picture, you feel like you're in a canoe.
Yes. Can I ask you, there's one intriguing clip on YouTube where you're trying to get out of the canoe onto a stepladder. And we're just waiting for you to fall in, but I guess it's your wife or whoever's with you says, no, Clyde, you've got to come back in. It's far too dangerous. What were you trying to do? What possessed you to put a stepladder in the middle of the Everglades and try and get on top of it?
Well, the problem is in that particular area, there's no shallow areas to get in and out of the boat.
Right.
So I can't. It was like 4.5 foot deep there. I can't get in the boat.
No, I see. Deep. So it was just to enable you to get in and out.
Yes.
Okay.
And that area is, it's about 6 miles of old growth cypress.
Yeah.
There was the first time we went there. It was in May, and it was the lowest water had been in 40 years. So these cypress trees were fully exposed, and we had a 100-foot measuring tape. And this one cypress tree we measured was 53 feet in circumference.
Wow!
It's magic when you're walking around. It's just magic. When you're in an old growth forest, there's something about it that.
Well, it's primeval, isn't it?
It really is.
Before time.
Yes, I mean, this area was probably hadn't been touched for 1,000 years.
Sure. Yeah, Clyde, I'd like to for you to tell folks about some of your darkroom work in a bit, but working out in that environment with either a 4x5 or an 8x10 or what's the other one you use? 12 by.
I shoot with a 5.7, 8.10, 11.14, and a 12.20.
Yeah, well, either of those, working in those environments, you've got to be pretty disciplined. You can't be dropping stuff, can you? What are some of the challenges? Some of the challenges that you've faced, maybe that you didn't quite expect when you first started, and how you've overcome them? And
I'm always in the water, so all my camera gear's on my back. You don't take it off, and then my wife carries a backpack with the film.
Right.
So she takes my camera out for me. Now I have a new 8x10. This is called a Shinhu.
Oh, I know. Yes. Yeah.
It's a non-collapsible.
Yeah, with a fixed back on.
Yeah, it's only 6 inches wide.
Right. Yep.
So I can put that with the lens in my backpack. So I pull it out of the camera. It's ready to shoot. All I got to do is put it on the tripod and focus. It's ready to go.
Yeah, you don't want to be fiddling with different lenses if you can help it, in case you drop them.
Yeah. Right. Well, also you don't want time-wise too. Sometimes you don't have enough time to do a shot. You want to get that. Sometimes things come and go as quickly. But and also it only weighs 8 pounds. And that's the Deerdorf 810 weighs 17.5 pounds. That's a lot of difference when you're out swamping.
Yeah.
And of course, so some of the times you have to kind of push the backpack up so it doesn't get in the water.
Yep.
That's the tricky part, not getting it dunked in the water. So it takes a lot of concentration. Now I have to take a lot of pictures right behind the house. There was a shot I was trying to do. Well, we just had the house, finished the house, and had the darkroom. First off, we had the darkroom in the house down in the swamp. We don't have it there anymore because there's too much chemicals. But I would go out there. It was set up. The camera was only, bottom of the Deerdorf was about, I'd say 6 or 8 inches off the water. And it was in about 2 feet of mud. So I tried to get the tripod. I couldn't get the tripod down to rock. So I would take a photograph. I'd go in and process the film. And then you could see where I had moved a little bit, and there's a double image. Kind of like a stereo shots. You saw a stereo shots.
Yeah, well, you get that on beaches sometimes, don't you? If you set your tripod up on the beach, and as the tripod starts to sink into the mud.
Correct. So I went out there every morning for 2 weeks, and because you had to do it just in the morning. It was a 6-minute exposure. You had to do it before the sun comes up, so it wouldn't get the dapply light. Mm-hmm. And of course, the 6-minute exposure gave me this great reciprocity failure. And I did it for 2 weeks. I took out some concrete blocks and hung it on the tripod. Yeah. Then I got my bubble cable release out. I was 10 feet away from it. I was still, everything in the I guess is connected. So finally, what I ended up having to do, get the whole thing set up, pull the dark slide out, and then swim up to the camera, turn on the shutter, and float in the water, counting to six minutes, and then swim up to the camera and turn it off. So I wasn't touching the water, the ground. So I've learned how to do swamp photography.
Well, it's not really that much of a transferable skill to many other places, I wouldn't have thought.
No.
So you've got these 5x7 or 8x10 or larger negatives, but you're making these 8-foot prints on occasion. How does that work then? Tell folks about how you're making these huge prints.
Well, back, I think it was in, when was it? Probably 1994. There was a printer in Miami. I had a book printed, and he called me up one day and said, "Hey, I got a camera here. You want a camera? I got a camera here. Can you like the camera? Come pick it up." So I said, "Sure." So I went over my little Toyota, and it was a 24 by 36 stat camera, weighed 2,000 pounds. It was. It had a 16-foot rail, and then it had a copy board. So we got it back, we set it all up, took the ground glass, all that threw away, put a piece of plywood in the back of it, cut a hole. I had a Aristo light head made with variable contrast, blue and green colors, made for it, which was $6,000. The enlarger was free, but the light source was $6,000. We used a picture frame for the negative carrier.
Yep. And
then I built a big board on the carrier, so I think our thing is about 9.5 feet wide. The printing board. So it's really a neat machine, though. I put test strips on it. Usually it takes to do a big print like that. Usually it takes at least 3 to 4 days before you're ready to print, because you don't want to blow too much paper. So you put a test strip in the middle, get that down. Then you put test strips on the side, get that down.
So you're using smaller bits of paper in key areas to determine, where you need to hold back or dodge or burn, those sort of areas, I suppose.
Each test strip is about probably 9 8x10s.
Yeah.
Then you do a full print, and so you can see what you have to do. So that one you throw away.
So you're buying rolls of paper from from Ilford, presumably. Yeah.
Ilford makes 54-inch paper.
Yep.
And 42-inch paper.
Yep.
We have those two. And but what the thing is about this machine is that the lens, the board that we're projecting on, tilts up flat. So once you get it where you want it, you tilt it flat so you can roll the paper out nice and easy.
Mm-hmm.
And we have made aluminum, like big aluminum frames that are welded together to hold it down. And then you flip it back up, do your exposure, you're burning and dodging. Sometimes it takes 2 people, 3 people to burn and dodge. It's like a dance. You're hitting my dodger. Come on, guy. Look out. You're hitting my dodger. You know. And then you tilt the thing back up and take the frame off and roll it up and take it in the darkroom.
And then you're using these big trays, aren't you, for developing?
Yeah. I built sinks. I built each tray is actually a sink. It's 4 foot by 5 foot. They hold 10 gallons of chemistry. Each tray has it's a sink because I have a drain set up in it so you can drain the chemicals out, and have piping underneath to control it. And the fix diverts to a machine that takes the silver out.
Oh, okay.
The whole thing is 30 feet long, a sink. But to process the big pictures, we use water noodles.
Use what? Forgive me, sorry.
You know what a water noodle is? I guess you don't know how.
Oh, those things that you put in swimming pools.
Yeah. I first used clothes rods, wooden clothes rods, but those are wood and they absorb chemicals, so you can't take them from tray to tray. Right. Otherwise, you're gonna kill the chemistry. So then I tried PVC tubes, which is that doesn't collect chemicals. The problem with PVC tubes, it pushed the paper down to the bottom of the tray, and it got really tough sometimes to roll it, and your fingers would create developing marks on the paper. But the water noodles float, so the paper doesn't go to the bottom of the tray. It just floats and goes back and forth.
So is the print these noodles?
Uh-huh.
I'm sure I've seen this on video, but for the life of me, I can't remember. Are the prints floating, sort of resting on these things?
No, they're rolled around them.
They roll around them.
The print's 8 foot long.
Right.
Sink's only 4
I need to look
wide.
I'm sure I've seen this on the video. I need to refresh my memory and then take a look.
The tray is only 4 foot wide.
Yeah.
Deep. I mean, it's 5 foot wide, but 4 foot deep. So you got 8 foot. So you have to go back and forth. The problem was I didn't understand. Very frustrating. That the 54-inch paper, after you go through the developer, it's expanded widthwise 2 inches. It's now 56-inch paper. And the tray, because they're a half inch, it's only 59 inches. So to wind that thing back and forth again, it's a challenge without having to get it crooked. And
how many of you are in this dance with the paper just to make sure that it moves fluidly from into stop, or if you're using stop bath or water, and then fixer? There must be at least 2 of you moving this.
Yeah, there is one on each side. Side. Yeah. We go into stop bath, which we usually do it for. We use develop a minute, 4 minutes. I'm sorry, developers 4 minutes, so that because that way it all gets completely done. Because when you
you're probably looking at 2.5 minutes. But if you're moving it backwards and forwards, you need to allow extra time for that developer to get the blacks black, don't you? I guess. Right,
because also you put the paper in there, it doesn't all go in the same time.
No.
So you have to make sure it goes through. So we go into the stop, which is a minute. Then we go into 2 fixes.
Yep.
You have to have 2 fixes. I said Kodak. So why, if we have fresh fix, you only need 1? He says, nope, you need 2.
Yeah, period. I use 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Then it goes into hypoclear and selenium at the same time.
Oh, do you together? See, now my darkroom process would be a brief wash, and then it would be after fixing, and then it would be selenium, and then I put it in the hypo bath, I think, or maybe a brief wash, then the hypo Kodak hypo powder stuff.
If you put the hypo and selenium in the same mixture, you eliminate that step, because if you don't put the hypo chlorine with the selenium, it'll stain the picture. Right. But if you put the hypo clear with the selenium, you can do it at one time.
Yeah, I get staining sometimes if I haven't done sufficient sort of washers in between. Right, you get that staining around the edge. The white border goes a bit murky, doesn't it? A bit.
That's why you don't do it that way.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Well, also, when you're doing it this way, when you put it in the microwave for a test to dry it.
Yes, I do that as well. That's an Ansel Adams trick.
Of course. But you have to get an old microwave. These new ones that have this pointed thing, you have to buy an old one.
Oh, no, I just use the one in the kitchen. My wife says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just putting the test strip in." And I put it on a low setting so it doesn't fry it. Occasionally it comes out with a brown marking where I've overcooked it, but normally it's just enough to assess the dry down, isn't it, on the highlights?
Well, see, if you get an old one that's dangerous, the microwave goes over the whole thing evenly.
Well, I just use our kitchen one, Clyde. I'm sure it's fine. I think you're making too much of this microwave business.
Well, this one we use, I bought it in 1984.
Right.
Still working. You have to every once in a while change the fuse because it blows out. But
it's a great tip. I shared a picture in our Facebook group a while back saying I've just got the test strips out of the microwave, and I just said that, and people said, "What are you doing?" And then someone asked me if I needed to do it with resin coated paper. I said, "No, you don't." But I said, just take your test strip, cut it in half, dry one half in the microwave, and then bring it back out, assess those highlights, and you'll see a difference.
Oh yeah. And also, if you don't selenium tone at the same time, your blacks are going to change too.
Yeah.
You got to do selenium we selenium tone all the tests. So we everything is selenium tone.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think because I always thought that dry down effect that you get on fiber paper certainly seems to be more pronounced in the highlights, and so I never really worry about the blacks. But you're suggesting that
look at the blacks before.
Well, I will do now. Yeah.
The selenium brings the black up.
Yes.
That's one of the main reasons to tone with selenium is to get those blacks black.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So it's making those big prints is quite a ordeal. Of course, you don't get everyone. Then you've got to get it out of the wash and dried without crinkling it.
I mean, drying just, what my standard paper is that Ilford 9.5 by 12, and I've got one of these dry mount presses, Clyde, that you can use for, if you want to, you can use it for mounting, but I use it just for flattening between some of that heat resistant paper material, and it's a great way of flattening fiber prints. And I was looking at you hanging your huge prints up on your clothesline, and I think, well, how are you getting them flat? Because people do all sorts of tricks to make flat prints, but I've never managed to get a flat print just hanging it up.
Well, the thing is, when it's on the roll paper, when we take it off, we leave it rolled, and leaving it rolled takes the wrinkles out sometimes.
Does it?
Well, not all the time, but most of the time. And of course, then mounting that is a whole different world too.
Yes. How do you mount if you want to for an exhibition? Are you mounting it onto foam core or something, or what?
Gator board.
Yep.
We mount it with transfer tape. The tape that's 50.
Is that the heat resistant tape? The stuff that?
Yeah, it's melts. Basically you have a protective coating on each side of the. It's 50. I think we use 60-inch wide tape.
Right.
And you put a layer type on the gator foam, which is fun to try to do that without getting any dust under it. That's a whole different world. And then you have to laminate the print without getting any dust under it. So there's all kinds of places where you lose a picture.
Yeah, you're certainly working hard for your for your art.
But you have a 5 foot by 8 foot fiber print. Not many people get to see those.
And you have those on. Do you have those on display?
Sure.
Permanently in your exhibition center or your
we have also like for instance we had a show for Indiana, Everglades show in Indiana. It got canceled, but because of the virus thing. But we have a show that's going in Ohio of the Everglades in September. So we'll have some of those large prints, and so they get to see that whole different world. We've done museum shows all around the country. In fact, we had a big show in the National Gallery in Prague in 2000 with that 9 foot prints.
Wow,
that was quite a project getting it over there.
Yeah, I was going to say, just the logistics of shipping must have been a challenge in itself.
Yeah, well, logistics of getting it back was a challenge. It's still over there.
That's right.
So
Clyde, what are the challenges that face the Everglades these days in terms? I mean, I'm thinking of climate change and all those sort of issues. What sort of impact have you seen in your time there, in terms of the threats to the Everglades?
It's the same problem you have. People.
Yeah.
Too much shit. That's air shit, and I mean,
because it runs downhill to the Everglades still.
It does run down. Yes, it does. And the Everglades is you would think, oh boy, it can grow better, but no, the Everglades is a nutrient poor system.
Yeah.
And when you get too much, it smells. When you get into an area where it's all the elements are correct, it's actually beautiful. There's no smell. It's just there's because
you get that in some farmland areas, certainly in the UK, if they've been heavy in nitrates in sort of enriching the soil, and that washes into the rivers.
Right.
I think the process is called eutrophication, I seem to remember, but it's a process. You just end with like slimy growth and things going rotten, and it's basically killing the environment, killing the water, isn't it, and making it go.
Yep. Well, also here it gets so bad that you can get sick from the air.
Right.
It's just people have a tendency to. They've always, through time, sometime forever, if you have a waste product, you just threw it away. There's too many people for that to happen anymore. Mm-hmm. But the habit's still there.
Yeah.
Just discard it.
Clyde, are you working with other artists and conservationists? Do you form groups of artists and conservationists working together to raise awareness? Or are you a lone voice, or are there others of you doing what you're doing to raise awareness?
There's a few others, but basically, I can't wait for other people. I just do it.
Yeah.
Like when I was introduced to the Everglades problem was in 1988. I was doing an art show in West Palm Beach, and this guy comes in the booth and says, "Wow, we got to have this in our new building, because people can see what the Everglades is all about." And he says, "We're going to probably need about 24, 30 of 40 by 60s. I'm saying, wow, that's going to be a great sale, you know.
Yeah.
And then he says,
"You've never quite let go of that commercial head, have you?"
Except he says, "But we can't pay for them."
Oh, right.
So it took me a while. It took about a month. And I called him up and I says, "Okay, I'll do it." So we did it. We did it, you know, hung them and everything. But by doing that, we were introduced to all the scientists, the whole process. We became a part of that political community.
Yeah.
And I learned what was happening. I didn't learn about the Everglades problems from Sierra Club. I learned it from the Water Management District because they were responsible for doing it. Yeah. Unfortunately, in the last 10 years, we moved up here to Venice. So I've been really in close contact for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of losing. I'm on the fringes now. So we're working up here on projects like the springs and the rivers up here. So, but the main project you have to work on is the global project. That's the project. All this other stuff is nice for the temporary, but unless we solve the problem worldwide, it's not going to make any difference what we do.
You did some stuff with Al Gore, didn't you? Did I see?
Oh yeah. He's one politician that I've asked questions and he's actually answered me.
Really?
Yeah. I've been with him a couple of times. And of course, Carter was so easy to talk to. We spent a couple of days with Carter. He was really great. But photographers could do a lot more of visually telling people the problems around the world. I mean, photographers take pictures. What do they do with them? And a lot of photographers are doing it for a hobby, but for some reason, if they want to give the pictures to somebody, they want to get paid for it. I don't have any problems working with governments since they don't have to write a PO. I don't charge them anything. It's easy to work with them.
Yeah. Mind you, I mean, everybody these days with all the unrest that's going on around the world at the moment, everybody's a photographer, aren't they, in terms of immediate news? And so things are just being shared sort of instantly, aren't they, with phones?
Yeah, but they aren't effective.
Well,
they aren't effective.
Yeah.
Particularly all this color work. Color work is just not effective. I mean, what pictures do you remember of the Vietnam War? For us, the Vietnam War and civil rights movement?
Ooh, well, yeah. I mean, that was
everything is.
You see the young girl, don't you, running along with?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The guy shooting the guy in the head. The monk getting burned.
Yeah.
The dogs in civil rights chewing on people. Of course, we got that now too. We're working back, getting the '60s going again here.
Well, Clyde,
anyhow,
we can analyze the world's problems to death. What you're doing out in the Everglades is tremendous, and you've got to raise awareness where you are. I think we can all do our bit, and you do a fabulous job by combining fine art with with political and cultural awareness and environmental awareness. And the trips you do around there, and long may it continue, that you continue to raise awareness and try and protect your corner of of this wonderful planet.
Yeah. We have a new book coming out on the Everglades. It's printed, but we're waiting to get it bound and shipped to us.
Yeah, I saw that, and folks can go to Clyde's website and place orders for a 2021 calendar and the new book. And certainly some of your older books are still available, I know, out there. Maybe not through your website, I don't know, but certainly there's a few. You've probably got half a dozen or so books out there, haven't you, Clyde? DVDs and stuff.
Oh yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, we didn't really get into my digital work camera too much. All my digital cameras that I have used, I use tilt and shift lenses, which brings me back to the large format concept. I mean, I just have to have them be able to rise, tilt, shift.
You're still looking for those same features on your digital stuff as what you were using before. Yeah.
I figured out the lenses I use are the Canon tilt and shifts.
Right.
And I figured out a way of adapting them to any camera that I've owned. I put those lenses on it.
Go on, Simon.
I have it adapted to my Leica, my M10 monochrome. They're adapted to that camera, which the Leica people says you can't do.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Oh, yes, you can, without a shadow of a doubt.
What I do, it's a little tricky. I have a Cambo makes a adapter from the Canon lenses to the GFX Fuji. You put the Canon lens on it, and this adapter, you could adjust the f-stop, whatever f-stop you want. Then you push a button and you set the lens, you set the f-stop, and you turn it off and take it off, and it's set at f16.
Yeah.
So now I just so everything I shoot is f16. Simple.
It is, and that's I mean, that's absolutely the subject matter of my other podcast, the Classic Lenses podcast, and it's interesting that you use a very modern lens. But I mean, on that show we talk about adapting old lenses, but the principle is exactly the same, and the flange distance is going to be absolutely fine with that. But you've highlighted the big problem with Canon EOS lenses, that the aperture mechanism on there is completely electronic.
Right.
And so you there's only two ways to do, well, it's three things. One, you just don't bother with the aperture. Two, you use a smart adapter, and that would allow the camera to talk to the lens, but that isn't going to happen with a Leica.
Nope.
And then thirdly, the way that you figured out there, that you trick the lens,
Oh, yeah.
and then put it back on.
Well, also I've got Pentax 645, 35, and 75 adapted to the Leica, and I have a RZ 75 shift lens adapted to Leica. It has a 20 millimeter shift in both directions.
Now I'll say your way. I'll say RZ because we say RZ over here. But let's go with that. Go with RZ.
I say RB.
Well,
but anyway,
but that's different. But
there's RB and RZ. They're the same.
I know.
Camera.
Yeah, but the thing is that the RZ lenses, RZ lenses, don't have a focusing helicoid in the lens because they have like a bellows arrangement, don't they? And,
but the adapters you buy have a helical.
Right, I've not seen those, but that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, they have a helical for the Fuji GFX, and they have a helical to the Canon. So then I take the Canon and put the Leica adapter onto the Canon. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. That's really good. And we're going to start closing things down now. But I've just coming back from earlier in the show
sure.
when I went quiet to do some research, and that was about the big question about who brought out retrofocus first. Was that the East German Zeiss, or was that Angenoux or Angenoux? Mm-hmm. And I'm absolutely delighted to say we're both right.
Oh, you're such a politician.
Oh, yeah.
61?
No, well, first thing, the first article I found was by somebody I know well. His name is Cheyenne Morrison, and he writes a lot of historical information about lenses, and he does most of his writing for casualphotophile.com. And he authored an in-depth article on the Flektogon back in April the 7th, 2019, in Casual Photophile, and what's going through there, he talks about the history of it, and Pierre Angenoux and Zollner of Zeiss applied for the retrofocus patents in the same year. They both they developed them independently of each other, and the reason why I immediately thought of Angeno's because I knew that Angeno used the term retrofocus, and I'm reading the article. Interesting enough, retrofocus. The actual word retrofocus had been used before by Taylor Hobson for one of their reverse telephoto lenses, which is sort of a similar kind of thing.
Right.
But Angeno tried to actually trademark it for his lens. But obviously he couldn't do because it was already out there, and East German Zeiss had already put that thing out there as well. But interestingly enough, the name sort of stuck with that design, and also with the West German part of Zeiss, which is the Zeiss that still exists today. Their version of it became known as the Distagon, and that's a phrase that's still in use today. I
still have my 20mm Flektogon. And I use it on the Fuji GFX.
Oh, that's interesting, and it gives it full coverage over the sensor.
Just about, yeah.
You know what? I could start a whole new section of this podcast now.
No, you couldn't.
Well, my Canon lenses have full shift on the GFX 100.
Oh well, I can easily believe that. That doesn't surprise me at all. And oh no, I've got to stop because we could
get Clyde, make another appointment with Clyde's assistant and get him on your other podcast.
Yeah, you're gonna have to come on the Classic Lenses show, definitely.
Yeah, I've been doing this a while.
Yes.
We were on B&H with B&H, and David, it was a picture of David there. He was introduced to me. He had his Deardorff set up with a gold dot Dagor. And I said to him, I see you got your gold dot Dagor. And he says, how'd you know that? Everybody knows what a gold dot Dagor looks like.
So just for folks listening, as Simon desperately tries to wrap up, you have just been involved in some online B&H presentations, haven't you? And folks can find those on YouTube. And listen and watch Clyde.
It's Optic 2020.
Optic 2020. Put that into YouTube and look for day 2. I think you're somewhere on day 2, aren't you?
Right, about
4 hours in.
4 hour point, yeah. Hopefully one of these days I'll have it broken apart.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It's basically, I did, it's the first time I've done a presentation quite like that. I started, the first thing opened when I was 10, then I jumped to now, then I jumped back to where I started again. It was kind of an interesting way of presenting things.
Well, we'll look forward to giving that. I'll certainly look forward to giving that a listen in the next day or two.
You can see all my crazy cameras. There's one shot there of all the cameras. I have 1220 Wisner, 1114 8x10 5.7 Deardorff, 4x5 Wisner, my model camera, 4x5 pinhole, and my Kaleidowide.
We've got a friend of the show called Wayne Setzer, and there's no reason why you should know him, Clyde, but it would be fun to get you two both on the podcast at the same time, although we'd probably have to set aside about 10 hours.
Yeah. Well, I'm mostly into wide angle lenses in the large format. I've got almost every, not everyone that's ever been made, but almost all the wide angle large format, from the 210 Super Cymar down to the 35 millimeter Rodegon, Rodenstock Grandagon.
I was just looking for a Rodegon 105 lens for my 6x9 lenses in larger lens, but that's a different story.
Well, which for 2 1/4, 3 1/4?
For 6. Well, I'm in centimeters, aren't I? So 6x9, whatever that is in old money.
A good Nikkor will cover that.
Yeah.
80 millimeter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I have an 80 Nikkor. I'll have a look and see if it'll get the coverage.
Sure, it does.
Okay. Well, that saved me some money. Well done. I'm glad I spoke to you.
Because you're not doing 8-foot prints.
Well, that's true.
The smaller the print,
the
bigger the circle.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Right.
Good.
Well, on that note,
Okay.
I'm gonna say, Clyde, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today.
Well, it's been fun. It's fun. It's it's kind of like in where I'm living now in Venice, Florida. There's hardly anybody to talk to about cameras. It's particularly large format. There's a little bit in Florida, but not much.
Well, you've got 29 other shows to go and listen to, Clyde, in your days of lockdown.
Okay.
Go. That don't sound quite so enthusiastic.
Yeah.
You've got lots of other shows, and you can. And our I don't know if you're a Facebook user or not, but we have a great group of very interactive people, many of whom have been on the show, and we're chatting about large format pictures, gear, reasons for doing it, and all sorts of things. And it's a great place to hang out.
I'm sure Kayla has all the facts to where I can find it all.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, your places where people can find you. We've mentioned your website, but I think let's mention it again.
Right.
It's clydebutcher.com, all one word. You also have an Instagram account. I've noticed here, which I'm now following you, and which is just type in Clyde Butcher, and they will find you. It's the man with the beard. I mean, you can't miss him. He's in with a large format camera. Yeah, so
and we have a Facebook account.
Yeah, I've liked that earlier, and I'm just following you on Instagram.
We have usually about 140,000 on that. I don't know how many we have on Instagram. I think it's
34,000
followers. Yeah, a few more than me.
Yeah,
that's not too bad.
Yeah. So and there's some great stuff on there. Unfortunately, it's tiny, of course, but that's Instagram for you. But it's a good way to get the message out there. Right. So other things. No emails this week, and I think that's just about it, actually. So Andrew, have you got any final shout outs or
no? Not really.
Okay, so week. Outside of this podcast, how can people follow the things that you do?
Outside of this podcast, you'll find me on Twitter and Facebook as well, certainly Twitter is Warboys Snapper. I think Facebook is just me, isn't it, Andrew Bartram? I think. I don't know.
Well, you just go to the group, don't you? Really?
Yeah, just to the group. But Instagram, I'm Warboys Snapper, and I quite like using Instagram. And every other week, most every other week, I'm helping to host the other podcast, the Lensless podcast, and that's going strong. Although it is every 2 weeks now, and we're up to about show 80, I think. Right. So if you're into pinholey things, you can find me there.
I suggest to people that want to learn photography, learn pinhole, because you have to perceive what you're photographing.
Yeah, you do.
It's really good learning tool.
I would think it's a great way of photographing the Everglades as well, really, because you're really capturing. It's a really good way to capture time for someone like you who loves, the effect of reciprocity failure. That long exposure that you're forced to do would be even longer with pinhole, I guess, wouldn't it?
I think 6 minutes is long enough.
Yeah, you might be like a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Anyway, what about you, Simon? Where can folks if they want to go and buy a lens cap? Find those.
If people want to buy a lens cap off me, then just go to simonforsterphotographic.co.uk, where I'm making lens caps, and there's the Kuto Camera Company in Massachusetts on eBay as well. There's also reproducing my lens caps for the North American market as well. And I've actually
I didn't realise you were going international.
I'm fully international. Yes. Produced under license in Massachusetts.
But you're producing lens caps and rear lens caps for hard to find lens caps, aren't you? For cameras that perhaps it's not so easy to get hold of.
That's right. In the main, it's things that you can't just go and get one from China. It's this, things like we mentioned earlier. Clyde mentioned earlier about Miranda cameras. I make lens caps for Miranda mount, which is an interesting, unusual mount actually. That one. It's got four fins on the body cap, on the lens cap, I should say. But I'm also moving slowly into doing some stuff with lens boards as well.
I've been watching that with interest.
Yeah, there's a few things to get right on that one before they're good for prime time. But watch your space. Lens boards will be coming soon.
Well, I might chat with you because that 300mm Industar lens, I need to shove it further forward, really.
Yeah.
I think the front lens standard on my Toyo is man enough for it, I think. But at some point, I'll talk to you about that. But anyway, enough of your shamelessly plugging your business.
Well, you asked.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So apart from that, I'm on Twitter as Simon4. That's FOR, not the number 4. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic. You can hear me almost every week on the Classic Lenses podcast. And I think that's enough for me.
I think that's got to be enough, hasn't it?
It has. So, Clyde, again, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Okay, help I didn't confuse everybody.
No, not at all. Well, you've given us tips. I mean, there was definitely things that you've given me direct knowledge on that I'm going to take away from today, and I know that happened with Andrew as well.
Did?
Well, it's a shame to lose all the knowledge that I have over the 60 years. It's a lot. I have a lot of knowledge, and that's one reason I do these things, so that maybe it doesn't all get lost.
Yeah. No, that's it is one of the reasons why we make these shows, because we want certainly specifically large format photography, but photography in general, we want to make it accessible to as many people as possible, especially people doing stuff on film. I mean, photography as a whole, it's very accessible. A lot of people are quite scared of doing stuff with large format photography, and the principles are pretty much the same as they are with almost any other kind. It's just different things. You've got to put things into a different order, that's all.
Well, you get larger than 4x5, there's other things that come in.
Yeah.
When you have an 8x10, when you pull a dark slide out, the film vibrates for probably 30 seconds before it settles down. The temperature change.
Right.
So there's all kinds of 12x20. Half the film will buckle if you're not doing it right. During the exposure. So when you go to the large format, there's all kinds of tricky stuff.
I don't know. So anybody that's thinking about doing large format, it's okay with large format. Don't worry about it. And then when you get good at it, you can be like Clyde and do big stuff.
Point and shoot 4x5 is fine.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'll stick with that if that's all right.
Okay.
It's a really a great format, and for most people that are doing that will blow. You can make from a good 4x5 negative, you can make a great 30x40s.
Yeah,
no problem.
Right. Well, on that note, we're gonna go. Our email address is largeformatphotographypodcast@gmail.com. The theme music, which is probably playing out at this moment, is it's called Two Finger Johnny by Kevin McLeod of Incompetech.com, and that's it. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to the three of us today, and we should be back in about 2 weeks. So goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.